Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I am your host, Adam Cousins, and I'm joined by birthday boy, the problem child, Dave Robertson. You're 21 again. Happy birthday,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I wouldn't want to spend it with anybody but your good self.
That is someone's. Have you done something wrong that you're going to tell me after this podcast, and you're trying to butter me up, or is it? Yeah.
I want you to get me into training and work towards a match against Mark True. I want you to pull some strings and make it happen.
Mark True has got Ricky Knight Jr. on Sunday. He's been. We must get while we're on the subject.
Yeah.
As much as we hate the guy and as much as he's a pain in our arse, but he is now part of Revolution Pro Wrestling along with his tag team partner Kieran Lacey. They're going to be a part of the tag team tournament or league that they're doing. It's not just going to be. I thought it was just going to be one show. It's actually over a period of time. So as much as we hate you, and to give credit where credit is true, well done, Mark. And you are a very good wrestler. You're just a big pain in our ass. And
well done, Marcus Truford. Well, you've done well there. You're just a Burke, but you're very talented Burke.
You're a very talented pain in our ass, but you will not. That doesn't mean you're going to get a title shot anytime soon, my friend.
No, you're not going anywhere near that turnbuckle title.
and good luck against Ricky Knight Jr. I think you may need that a little bit. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Marcus Truford, Turnbuckle Championships, or anything else other than AEW Grand Slam, which aired on Wednesday. You may recall, if you'd watched the Maven podcast, that there was a couple of injuries coming out of that, which we will discuss in this show. Anyway, it started with my good friend and everybody's favorite wrestler, Eddie Kingston, against Cesaro in a match where it fitted title for title. And I'm a big Eddie Kingston mark, so it doesn't surprise that I am very happy. Eddie Kingston gets his moment. Eddie Kingston finishes the story. He beats Cesaro in a hard-hitting contest, a great way to open up the show, Dave, and a little bit of a show of respect at the end from Claudio Castagnoli.
Yeah, this whole show for me, it felt like a pay-per-view.
Yes.
I don't know if you felt like that as well.
Yep.
It was like, I know they've done special Dynamites over the years and stuff, and sometimes they do every week seems to be a theme, and it gets a little bit diluted, but they haven't done that as much, and that's possibly because they've got Forbidden Door and Wrestle Dream to factor in. But this did feel like a legitimate big deal, the whole episode, and they couldn't have started off any better. I mean, the crowd was so hot for it. Some great moments in the match. I really loved when Claudio blocked the back fist with the top of his head, little bits and pieces like that. And I know they've kind of said this is it and this is the end and this finishes the. I really hope it doesn't. I really hope that they can circle back, and even if it's months down the line, return to this, because I've really, really enjoyed this story and the way they've told it and all the history that's gone into it as well. But yeah, I like that the code of honor was adhered to at the end of the match, but it was very begrudgingly. So we'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to hearing Eddie's first promo as the new Ring of Honor World Champion.
Me too. And if anything, look, Eddie Kingston, look, he may not. People may body shame him or may say he look like a wrestler. He does these two things. He wears three things. He wears his heart on his sleeve. You believe every word he says when he does a promo, and he can back it up in the ring because he gives absolutely everything. And that is maybe because I'm an Eddie Kingston mark, but that is my true belief on Eddie Kingston.
Yeah. And I think there is a little bit of, I'm not aware of it fully. You might have a better insight, but the powerbomb finish, I think that goes back to something that someone that he faced perhaps in Japan had told him to finish a match with a powerbomb or something along those lines. So I think there is more to the story there, which I'll look into. But I thought they told the perfect story. And to give Eddie's moment, I think we all hoped that it was going to happen. The fact that it was in New York as well, it couldn't be a better location as he's from New York. Yeah. This was just a real great moment. And him holding both those titles up was a real great image to see.
It was, and he thoroughly deserved that moment. He deserved his AEW moment. He had his Japan moment, and he's got his AEW moment. So congratulations.
People have said about Eddie Kingston before that he doesn't need a title because you're so invested in his match or in his character. So they don't need him fighting for a championship for us to care. But I'm so glad that not only has he got one championship, he's got two, and he has been recognized for his hard work, his commitment, his believability, everything that he, as you say, he puts everything heart on his sleeve. He throws everything out there, and you do feel that he's the real authentic Eddie. That's him as a person, and he loves wrestling. And for him to be able to get these big moments, his career just absolutely deserves it. And I'm looking forward to seeing his first defense as well.
Me too, and I'm looking forward to seeing him progress in about a month's time. So I'm going to keep on about that until I've seen him, and then I'll probably go on about seeing him.
Do you want to borrow my t-shirt?
You won't be getting it back if I'll get one. I will get one myself eventually. Wrestling t-shirts. I need to have a look at. I've got a Christmas list, and it's ever expanding of wrestling t-shirts. It's just finding the warehouse like you've got to put them in with your shirts. From seriousness to comedy next. Roddy Strong is on life support without the life support machine, with Adam Cole and the Kingdom. Adam's all about his match and he's worried about Roddy, and Roddy tells him just to go. And I think in hindsight, when we talk about the main event later, well, he's probably gutted that he went. Really fun. You kind of get that serious. You're really happy, and then you go into fits of laughter after this, which is probably well placed from AEW at that point.
How he came up in his chair, Adam Cole stopped, and then he just came into the back of the shot. It was just so good. Apparently that was from a film. Sorry, the dog's just jumping up me. That's from a film, apparently. I don't know actually what film, but it was so good. And Roderick Strong, I've seen him over the years, and I've seen him in NXT, but I haven't followed his career as closely because I didn't watch Ring of Honor growing up. I wish I did, but it just passed me by to a degree. But I think he was always somebody that people thought he's great in the ring, but he's not really a force on the microphone, or he's not really a character. He's just a great wrestler, but he's just showing that he's got this up his sleeve. His timing, the stuff when he had his eyes closed as well. I think Cole said, Roddy, open your eyes. It sounds real simple, but it's so funny. It's great, and I hope the fact that the Kingdom were in mourning as well. I think we've got to give a shout out to Taven and Bennett, because I think they have really enhanced this story, and they've really added to it, and they've played their part in the popularity of it. So yeah, I hope this carries on for a while. I'm really enjoying it, and I think perhaps the match now is probably Adam Cole Roddy rather than we were thinking it was Roddy MJF. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see which way they go with it.
Yeah, me too. It's really funny. It's just another great segment. But it moved from that to a different segment, which was Renee Young with Christian and Luchasaurus. Basically, they're going to walk through Sting and Darby Allin Rampage, and then he challenges Darby to a triple threat match at Collision, him versus Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin, which has been confirmed for Collision, as well as quite a few stacked matches on Collision this week. I
think that's very interesting, because I know that AEW are very high on Christian at the minute. They're really happy with what he's doing. It's phenomenal. Dad of the year, father of the year. I think that's great as well. As well as the neck health stuff that Roddy's doing, I think there's a few really entertaining bits and pieces going on. But back to Christian, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being it comes out the TNT champion. I'm not sure how they do that with Luchasaurus, and obviously I think the whole the reason behind this story in the first place is to elevate Luchasaurus, but the popularity of Christian has kind of blown him out the water. So I'm not sure what they do and how they do it, but it's very interesting to me, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Christian Cage is the official TNT champion by the end of Collision.
It wouldn't surprise me either. I'm looking forward to that. I must say, Christian, as you say, they're very high on him. He's doing some of the best work of his career in AEW.
Well, the ring work has always been there, and I loved the point in Christian's career when he was against Orton, when they were trading the title. One more match and all of that. So Christian's shown in the past just how good he is and how entertaining he is. But this version of this character, the scathing promos and just everything he's doing. He comes on the screen and you're interested. You want to know what Christian's going to say. You want to know what Christian's going to do. So it's whether they continue trying to elevate Luchasaurus, but he's just being overshadowed by how good Christian is. So we'll see. Either way, the title's going to be over Christian's shoulder, but whether it's officially his or Luchasaurus's, we'll find out on Saturday night.
We will, and Saturday night is all right for fighting, as Collision tells us every week.
Yeah.
Let's stare at that. Let me go back to it is Sammy Guevara, Chris Jericho next. I like this, but there was a couple of, again, I don't like bringing up sloppy moments, but there was a big one on this one. I don't know
big.
what big.
Make it when totally missed him.
Yeah.
On the apron. There was that. And even the finish, it's a very, very good idea, the finish, and I liked it. It just slightly off, wasn't it? The code breaker.
Yeah, it was
shooting star. I mean, if that would have hit perfectly, similar to do you know when Orton hit I mentioned Randy Orton a couple of times, but remember when he hit the RKO on Evan Bourne?
Yeah.
When he did the shooting star and cutting that timing
impeccable.
was so good. And I think the idea of this was fantastic, but it was just slightly off. Yeah. But the kick was worse.
Yeah, the kick was worse.
And I don't know who you blame. I don't know if Jericho's a touch slow.
The weird one was he went to the second rope first and then jumped off. Like he got confused what spot was next.
Yeah.
And then Guevara kicked him, but didn't kick him. And then it's one of those little bits and pieces. But other than that, the match was actually pretty decent.
It was a good match, and I wasn't sure about Jericho going over. But obviously what we saw at the end of the match and what that leads to, and even the little bit backstage with Daniel Garcia following it, that does interest me. And I think Sammy Guevara being alongside Don Callis, is the way to go. I'm kind of done with the factions now. And I know that's a strange thing to say given to the Don Callis family.
Yeah.
But I think rather than them being a group and Sammy being like a backup or like a member of a group, I think Takeshita, Sammy, and if they do go Daniel Garcia, they're their own stars. They're in their own right. They're more of a force's main. Do you know what I mean? It's not the fact they're a group. It's the fact they're individuals that are aligned. And I think that will be an interesting story as well. And obviously, Sammy and Chris Jericho isn't over yet.
No, it isn't. So just for those who don't know, they recreated the WrestleMania, I think it was 17 or 18.
Shawn Michaels finish.
Basically, at the end of the match, Chris Jericho won. Chris Jericho won this particular match. He lost at WrestleMania. They hugged like Shawn and Chris Jericho did. And instead of Chris Jericho kicking Shawn Michaels in the balls, Sammy Guevara did exactly that to Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho slid down the body like Shawn did. And then Don Callis walked down to the ring. Sammy Guevara left with Don Callis. Had Daniel Garcia, a bit of a conflicted Daniel Garcia at the back, but there was no violence between them two, which was
Don says he's money because he liked this thing last week, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So
did you see the Tony Khan video of him doing Daniel Garcia's dance?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, check it out.
Yeah, funny.
You think Vince McMahon's bad? You ain't seen nothing yet. Check that out. It's brilliant. It is actually quite funny. Yeah, he does Daniel Garcia's dance, so you might want to put a pen and write that down. There was another MJF. Well, there was another Adam Cole segment. MJF shows up. They were talking about Samoa Joe. Then Adam Cole gets an emergency call from you guessed it, Roderick Strong, and he has to take it, and he does. And that's the end of that segment. Funnily enough. Now, okay, so we're now into the kind of serious bit of the show here. The next match is Jon Moxley, Ray Fenix for the International Championship. Now, early on in this match, within the first minute, Fenix does a dive off the stage, I believe, to the outside where Mox is, and he catches him basically knees him in the head as he does a flip, and that gives Mox a concussion at that point.
Yeah.
Match continues. Moxley is fucking all over the place. I'm sorry for swearing, but this is Moxley is all over. You can tell something's not quite right.
That was apparent, wasn't it? So I'm really surprised, and I'm glad that you've cleared that up. And I wanted just to clear it up, really, because the report was that Fenix, it was caused during the finish, and it was not the finish at all. And Fenix has come in for a bit of criticism. And I've even had one like respected journalist saying that he shouldn't be doing that move on Moxley because of the size difference and Moxley being so much bigger. But it was nothing to do with that move. And you
wasn't
kind of tell.
The only thing I would say, so basically the match goes on as it is. The match goes on. It's still a decent match. Don't get me wrong, the match is still great.
Yeah, it's good.
Even though Moxley at this point is like a drunk person. You know, he is literally lights are on, nobody's in, groggy as anything. You can tell something's not quite right. He does pick him up for the Phoenix driver. The only criticism I can have of it is it reminded me a bit of the Owen Hart Austin one, because I think I'm not a wrestler, so I can't. I'm only going by what I'm guessing here. Is the head's meant to tuck between the legs so that it covers the neck from the fall? This one, it was like do you remember the Owen Hart one of Austin when he kind of opened his leg up as he dropped him down? And
he sat like,
It was kind of a bit like that, which is, I think, why everyone's thinking that was the bit where he got the concussion, but it wasn't. At that point, Phoenix goes for the cover. Now, the match was changed on the fly. Moxley was scheduled to go over in this match. That is the scheduled finish from what we are told. We don't know that to be factual. This is just a report from these great journalists that apparently know everything about wrestling. So he was meant to obviously kick out of the Phoenix driver. I would assume if he's got concussed and he was dropped on his head like that, it probably didn't help the situation. But the hand from the referee went down for 2. And as it went down for the 3rd time, he kind of went under to check Moxley's shoulders. And it was and everyone was like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, this is totally on the ref. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that one is a big mistake from the referees. Rick Knox, is it?
Rick Knox, yeah.
Rick Knox, that's his name. Yeah.
I think it probably became apparent throughout the match that I think Moxley had said, you're going over.
Yeah.
And you would think the ref would have picked up on that. So he must have thought that although Phoenix was going to win, that wasn't how he was going to win. But I think the refs are always told, if a guy doesn't kick out or if they're doing a count out or something in the corner and the rope break and they don't do it, you disqualify them. Yeah,
you have to go with the match flow, so to speak. So, and even if it wasn't, even if he did count to 3, it was a mistake. They could have easily switched the title back to Mox the week later. I know we don't like quick title changes, but you do make exceptions to the rule. So anyway, he checked it. So he went 1, 2. He literally went down for the 3, then went under Moxley's shoulders to check the shoulders, and then Phoenix had to hit another Phoenix driver on Moxley.
Moxley do it again.
Yeah, you hear Moxley do it again. Yeah, that was clear as day. Obviously, as we say, Mox at this point, he's obviously well out of it at this point. Then the referee cast free, then Phoenix wins. Now, apparently Moxley wasn't very happy with the ref at that point. I think the ref got a bit of a barrage at some point.
Yeah, rightly so.
It was a big mistake on the referee. Should have counted it anyway.
Because they covered it. If it wasn't for that, even though Moxley was off and he was groggy, he'd got through the match and it was a pretty good match. So if that would have gone off as it was planned, as it was changed throughout the match, it would have been a real wow. What has just happened? And then afterwards the reports would have come out and we'd have known the reason, because obviously Mox hasn't really had the title too long.
No,
so we never expected, and this is the thing I've been criticizing. Sometimes the predictability of the finishes. So that would have created such a great moment, but then when that happened, it was like, oh, this was something. It became the spotlight went on it for the wrong reasons, and all the ref had to do was just. As you say, count the 3, and then they could have sorted whatever else down the line. But
what we do hope is that Moxley, we heard it's minor, which is good. Good. Listen, no concussions, good, but
he left on his own volition, like he walked out.
It's a trailer, I believe.
On
social media, whether that's again true or not. I don't know whether walking out on his own would done him any favors in a sense, because realistically you need to be, I would assume, hospitalized for at least a day just to double check everything is okay and you're not suffering big time. But nevertheless, we do hope that the Mox is back on our TVs very soon. Just think all about it. Before this whole first Punk issue, he was meant to have 6 weeks off. He's never had the 6 weeks off yet, and he's carried
it took this to happen for him to get a bit of time off. And as you say, the most important thing is that he's okay, and it's not as serious as perhaps it looked when it first happened.
Yeah,
Phoenix becoming the champion is I love that. Obviously, I don't like how it happened, the circumstances surrounding it. I don't actually like that the match continued. I think the match, as soon as he got the concussion, the ref should have thrown it out there and then, or at least consulted more with Doc Samson. So I think the ref's to blame there for not kind of looking after the wrestlers. And I also think he's to blame for the finish as well. So, I know Rick Knox is...
Go on, sure.
Well, I know he's highly thought of, and I know the Young Bucks love him. He's like the Young Bucks ref. But I think really he's got to do better in that situation.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that I think that social media was a bit harsh to get people saying to be fired, especially on the day of yesterday and what happened with other companies yesterday.
Everyone can make a mistake or mistakes, The main thing is that everyone learns from it, and if that situation happens again, that it's dealt with differently. Because everyone understands. We've been to shows or watched matches when they've had to call it off mid-match, and there's never any backlash from anyone when that happens. It's disappointing for everyone involved, most of all the wrestlers, but the safety is paramount. And I think anything head-related, concussion-related, Moxley shouldn't then be going and having a 15-minute match. As much as he wanted to, and as much as kind of he must have not given the ref a choice, I think the ref has got to override him there alongside the ringside doctor and say, no, we're calling this off.
Yeah, I agree. They should have done that. So a bit of a mistake there for him. But again, fire him is ridiculous. And you really...
Yeah, and when it's in the heat of the moment, it's very difficult to know what the right thing is. And you don't know how bad Moxley is. And Moxley's saying, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So, but I think they just learn from this. And as I say, if it happens again, they deal with it differently.
And the internet wrestling community gives your heads a wobble. To be quite honest with you.
I can't advocate for somebody losing their job for making a mistake. Everybody would lose their job.
Ridiculous. Absolutely.
Every day, wouldn't they? The amount of people lose their job. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Samoa Joe's going to make Max pay and take his title as a little bit of a backstage point. Saraya, Toni Storm. I love this Toni Storm character. Is one of the best characters on TV at the moment. I absolutely love this. The match was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was probably in that sort of middle passable.
Yeah. Saraya, unfortunately, she's not reached the heights that she did prior to her injury. And I totally get it. She had a major, and not just a major injury, a career-ending injury.
Yeah.
And she hasn't wrestled much. So again, the moment at Wembley was awesome.
Yes.
And I didn't want her to lose the title on her first defense.
No,
but hopefully as time goes on and she has more matches, she returns. Her confidence comes back to where it was prior to the injury, and it leads to a real good match with Mercedes Moné. But yeah, as you say, the Toni Storm character.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's one of the best characters in a long time. Not just female, just one of the best characters in general. She's just. We talk about Mark True, as mentioned earlier, and when he kind of walks, he's on it. He's a 100% committed to his character, and Toni Storm is exactly that.
She is. I love the character. Anyway, Paige, for Christ's sake. Saraya wins with a nightcap. 1, 2, 3. Match of the day, passable match. You can just tell she just needs more matches. And it's difficult for Saraya to have, because we know that obviously after a match she does have an issue. I think it's her stomach, isn't it, with the issue that she has. That's commonly. So look, we know how good she is.
Well, that's the only. I think if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't be as much discussion around it. It's just knowing how good she is. And she just has, and she probably by her own kind of standards, she knows that she's got more to give, and there's more. She's on that journey back to 100% in terms of the performances. So it's only because how good she is that it's mentionable, to be honest.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Main event time. We've done this pretty quickly today, my man. We're on the main event already. This is Samoa Joe and MJF. Now, we did say there was another injury during this, and it was quite, I'm not to use the word comical, but in terms of like it, happened when the guy wasn't even in the ring. Adam Cole, the match goes on, Joe's already targeting the neck. And that's what I like about someone like Samoa Joe. When there is a storyline injury to somebody or is someone suffering for it, he is on that body part, and he was working MJF's neck throughout a lot of this match. I'll tell you what I thought was going to happen in a minute, but at one point Samoa Joe had him, I think in the was it the Kimura or some lock that he does? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, Adam Cole at this point runs down to the ring, and as he runs down to the ring, he gets about a quarter of the way between the ring and the floor, then decides to jump, and he is now injured his ankle. He was released from hospital yesterday on crutches. We're not entirely sure of the severity of the injury, maybe an ankle sprain or something like that. But it just goes to show you that wrestling, you don't have to be in the ring, you don't even have to be taking a bump to get injured. It can just be something as notorious as a jump off the.
Hopefully he's just rolled it. I know because he was wearing like the high tops, and I've got a few pairs, and he wear them quite loose, and it's very, very easy to roll an ankle. So the way he jumped off there, because there was the ramp went to the top of the ring, the same level as the ring, rather than it coming below it. So yeah, it's really unfortunate, but he kind of styled it out. He went down, he got straight back up. You could tell he was in some discomfort, but fair play to him. Like he carried on, and it went off. You know, it was the cocaine clutch. I think he was
cocaine clutch. Sorry, So this was the point that I thought the match was going to. I thought Adam Cole was going to throw the towel in.
Okay,
that's what you remember the Bob. If you, I don't know if you was watching, but maybe I'm going to show my age here, my man. So you may have to. Bob Backlund once fought Bret Hart at a pay-per-view. Okay. And he had clearly you haven't seen this then. And great. Here comes old man Adam with the story.
History lesson.
This was it was at this point where Bret and Owen were together as brothers.
Yeah.
And Bob Backlund had the chicken wing submission. Bret was champion. Backlund was I think Bret was either the world champion or the Intercontinental. I think it was the world champion. And he had the chicken wing on Bret for probably 5 to 10 minutes, and Owen Hart threw the towel in because he was this family at ringside. He kept saying he was crying to his mum, Martha Hart. I think Martha was Owen's wife, wasn't it? Helen Hart. Helen. And he's saying about he's my brother. She gave him the towel. We threw it in, and then he would run off and was going woo as he would normally do. So it was kind of the split between Bret and Owen. And I thought as we done the Shawn Michaels Jericho bit earlier on in the show, I thought we were going to end with the Bret Owen split up.
Is that what led to the Bret Owen match at Mania?
Yes. So I thought that was how it was going to end that match. Yeah. But actually, and quite surprisingly, not the fact that MJF won the match. He choked Samoa Joe out.
Yeah. It was a callback. He used a similar finish against Punk.
Yes.
When he choked, I think that was in the match in Chicago when MJF beat Punk in Chicago. So it was a bit of a callback to that. Yeah. Was it a chain or was it wrist tape? I couldn't really tell.
Let me see what I've got on my notes.
Yeah.
Tape.
He was tape. Yeah. I thought it was perfect. And what I really liked as well is Samoa Joe shaking Maxie, although given everything, he was like, "Yeah, you've kind of that's exactly what Joe would have done," and he was kind of like begrudgingly respected it. This was awesome. I loved when Joe pulled up the mat at ringside and did the pile driver, was it on the concrete?
Yeah, and
then his reaction, how he was laughing after it. But Joe is just phenomenal. I'm loving this run. I've seen Joe. Joe was running the WWE, when he was up against Lesnar. That was some decent stuff back then. And I know ultimately they didn't do much with him after that. Yeah. You go back to his run in TNA and some of the matches he had with the likes of AJ and Kurt Angle, which, again, if anybody hasn't seen it, well worth going back and having a look at. But I think this version of Joe, I don't know, just the experienced and how sadistic he is, I just think this is probably his best run, which says something, to be honest. But I think it really is.
It is his best run. I think definitely. Well, if it's not, it's definitely up there.
It's up there, yeah.
And that really brought to the end of Dynamite, really. You hit the nail on the head. I was going to mention that Samoa Joe shaking MJF's hand. This was a really strong... I mean, obviously, there was a couple of bits and pieces that we spoke about in there, but the actual episode as a whole... I mean, Grand Slam always has that big fight feel to it.
Yeah.
One of the special shows that they run every year so far. and every time they run it, it is always special, and they absolutely delivered it for me on this one.
Yeah, and I heard Sean Ross Sapp say that this is how Battle of the Belts should feel. It should be like a mini pay-per-view. And there is talk apparently that Grand Slam might be a pay-per-view in its own right at Half Rest next year. Because the report was that AEW are going to run monthly pay-per-views.
Yes.
So
that was the news. Sorry, you took
it. So if that happens, I think Arthur Ashe will be
a pay-per-view.
a pay-per-view rather than Grand Slam. It might just be Grand Slam as the name of the pay-per-view, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is great. And I know there was reports before the show about the attendance not being sold out, but I think the way they filmed it was great. So if there was empty seats, you didn't really see them.
Yeah.
It was a packed crowd. There was a rowdy crowd. It was a New York crowd. New York's one of the biggest markets for wrestling. So I really did think it was a great show with a great atmosphere. A couple of unfortunate incidents, regrettable accidents, few slip-ups in matches. But overall, I've got to give the show a 9 out of 10.
I was going to, I gave it an 8.5. I leveled out with NXT, really. NXT's been doing, you've probably seen the chat in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Where I'm kind of thinking maybe just me on my own, or me and Andy may have to start reviewing NXT, maybe start with No Mercy. It's going to be interesting on No Mercy, because I didn't want to talk about this, but just quickly, as you kind of alluded to, one of the matches on No Mercy was going to be Dominic Mysterio versus Ali.
I heard that.
Is now not going to happen due to the release of Ali yesterday.
Ali is the biggest surprise to me. It is and it isn't, because I know he asked for his release a long time ago, but they seem to be doing stuff with him. And the fact that he had this free agency, that kind of made me think, rather than they didn't have stuff for him, that they did have stuff for him, quite specific stuff. And as you say, the match with Dominic was a big part of that. So that one surprised me. Elias did to a degree.
His contract was up.
His contract was up, similar to Dolph.
Well, I hear Dolph was through to summer 2024, so I don't know whether that was an extension due to injury or what. But to go on to it, Dolph didn't. A bit like you just said with Ali. Ali, who's not related to budget cuts.
Yeah,
apparently there was something that's happened there with Ali, and that's what's caused that release. Budget cuts after announcing a £1.25 billion TV deal with Fox and a 60,000 seater sellout in Australia. Budget cuts.
I've got to say, to hear anybody losing their job is sad, and you kind of feel for them. At the same time, it's a very different landscape and situation now to some that have happened in the past, the ones during COVID, for example. If I were Dolph Ziggler and Ali and Elias and Emma, even people like Dana Brooke, there's opportunities out there. You got Japan, you've got Impact. I mean, I've been watching OVW, the Netflix documentary. They put on a hell of a show. You've got the UK scene, the indies in general. So I think all of those guys are going to be absolutely fine, and their phones are going to be very, very busy over the next 90 days. And I can't wait to see a few of them turn up in the likes of Impact. Not even before, it was always, well, they're going to go to AEW, or they're going to go to. I don't think that's a given for any of them now.
No.
But I think that's a really good thing. The fact that there's so many options, there are so many opportunities. NWA, sorry, as well. That's a great fit for somebody like Elias, I think. The NWA.
Yeah.
I know you watch it with Fee, so maybe you could, speculate on that a bit more than myself. But for me, looking at Elias, I think they could do some great stuff with him there.
Yeah, NWA is a really interesting one. The talent pool is really, from a character perspective. I mean, they've got a Gimp, they've got Clowns, they've got La Rebellion, which is in terms of their characters, what they have on show. I mean, Elias would be a good
Billy Corgan as well, a guitarist, isn't he?
It's kind of written in that, and
they'd have a lot of stuff to talk about and a lot of ideas to bounce around involving the rock and wrestling aspect. So I'm sure there's some great stories to be told, and I'd be really excited. I don't necessarily want them all to go to AEW.
No, of course.
If a couple of them did, great, if it was the right thing, but I think there's better opportunities for some of them that would make more sense than just joining an already bloated roster.
I would say Cedric Alexander should go to Impact Wrestling.
Has he Cedric on, has he? I didn't know that.
Shelton Benjamin as well.
I knew Shelton. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
Cedric
Cedric had been
Alexander. Yeah,
released.
he should go Impact Wrestling all day.
Yeah, X
I know.
Division.
Even Shelton should go probably Impact Wrestling.
Yeah,
Potentially.
yeah. I think Impact are going to be the real big winners, or they're really going to benefit from these talent cuts. As you say, we don't know if they're over. I didn't know about Cedric. You'd like to think that's it now, and they're not just going to keep releasing people over the next week.
21 got cut. So there's some of them are NXT and Level Up guys. Now with the NXT and Level Up guys, I know this is AEW, but we have finished the Impact review. We have finished the Dynamite review. I had my flu jab this morning, guys. That's what it is. It's killing me. There's 21 of them. Now with the NXT ones, I think there's now clauses in their contracts where every 30 days they get evaluated.
Okay.
Obviously, kind of like a job. If you're not hitting where they want you to go, you could be released. So I think in a Level Up and NXT world, that's what they're doing. The rest of, I mean, I can only assume these are budget cuts because of the TKO merger and all of that, stuff.
Yeah.
They got rid of about 100 office staff, which is generally that happens. My company has done 27 acquisitions in 3 years, so I know that you do get a lot of cuts in terms of staffing. So I know the office stuff. I mean, the contractual stuff.
I actually think AEW will benefit more from the office staff that have been cut than the actual in-ring talent, because they're building their infrastructure. And Jericho was talking the other day saying, as a company, they're knowing there's jobs that exist in WWE that he had never heard of, and he's been in the business over 30 years. So I'm sure there's plenty of backstage roles and office roles that AEW can get some experienced wrestling people in. So that's where I think they will benefit the most in terms of bringing people in. One match that's been speculated a lot, and I've heard a few people talking about it now. I'd be interested to hear your take, and if you want to see this match. Dolph Ziggler versus Kenny Omega. Is that something that you would be interested in?
From a wrestling standpoint, absolutely. I think that's listen, Dolph Ziggler was he underutilized in the WWE? I don't think so. I think when you look at everything that he's done throughout his 19 years in the WWE, started as like a cheerleader, for Christ's sake, and he worked his way up. Championships galore.
Champion, yeah.
That would be a great. That'd be a great. Cedric Alexander against Kenny Omega would also be a great. But yeah, I mean, Dolph Ziggler and Kenny, I'd love to see. I think Kenny Omega versus pretty much anybody, to a degree, would be great.
Ryan Nemeth, obviously Dolph's brother, and Nick Nemeth, I suppose he's going to go over now. Obviously, he is very good friends with the Elite. He appears on Being the Elite. He was involved in the Punk controversy.
He was again. I think Dolph was on.
Yeah, Dolph has been on. Yeah. So if Dolph does pop up in AEW, and if his contract is up, I don't know if that means there's no non-compete.
It would be if his contract was up, but I think he got released, which, as I say, I think he still had some
conflicting stories
on that one. Yeah, conflicting on that. But it's the same with the situation with Punk. Because he got terminated with cause. There was a cause for the termination. The legal part of that is that there is no non-compete in Punk's contract. If assuming that's what Tony Khan said, that he was terminated with cause, meaning something caused his termination other than terminated without cause, which is kind of like being released. So from a legal standpoint, Punk unless it's written in the contract, Punk doesn't have any compete clause, and he's gone. Okay. But that was going Punk. We're talking about the release of WWE. I'd be happy to see Dolph in against Omega. Dolph and Ricky Starks would be a really good. We can fantasy book. I mean, look at
this is what I'm saying
against Cedric Alexander. Will Ospreay, Cedric Alexander.
Yeah, and as I say, Tenille Dashwood, Emma.
Saraya's already started that.
Yeah. So I could see that, particularly if AEW want to do something in Australia down the line. Impact have WWE going back there. So I'm very surprised that they've announced the Australia show and released Emma.
Well, the worst thing about it was she had tweeted that she couldn't wait to go back.
Yeah.
40 minutes later was like, oops, sorry, I've been released. I was like, oh.
That's but she wasn't being used. But it says if I were them, as hard as it is, and the WWE was probably, it's the place to get to as a wrestler. Young people wanted it's always been WWE.
Yeah.
But over the last few years, things have changed, and the opportunities out there. I think they've got a lot of those guys have got to be really excited for the next phase, the next chapter in their career. Yeah. I know that's easy for me to say. I'm not the one that's just been released and told that, there's got to be some like feeling of rejection and, a lot of psychological things to deal with when you're released from your dream job. But in terms of opportunities, I'm really, and I think fans will be doing the fantasy booking and will be fantasy booking, and keeping those released wrestlers in the conversation. And I think it's a real bad thing, but it could be a really good thing for wrestling and those individuals.
And I think you just look at the ones like Cardona and that and what he's done, and there's a couple of others. When you look at Drew McIntyre when he was first released, he went back to his roots, come back, and there is that sort of thing. And I don't think any of it. I think now, as you say, it's a bad thing to happen, but ultimately now there's more flavors of chocolate to go for, and that's where I think we will leave the releases at this point.
Any sexual chocolate?
Dave, it's your birthday. I don't know if we can.
Shout out to Mark Henry.
Shout out to the world's strongest man, Mark Henry. Yeah, but guys, this has been Impact Wrestling. I did it again. I'm getting like you with these endings here. This has been a Dynamite wrestling review. Dave's going to go and enjoy his birthday. I'm going to find out how to start learning how to talk properly during these shows. I'll be back later on. Me and Andy are going to do a top 10, the top 10 heels. Dave, send me yours. We mentioned this to Maven yesterday. Maven was like, always do something which is controversial. And I said, that's all right. I'll just bring Dave on. Because your top 10s are very good because yours are different to ours because of the time that you watch wrestling. So it's always entertaining with your top 10, but they're interesting because different era.
Yeah,
so that's amazing. But when Maven said about make it controversial, like, well, that's easy. We'll just bring our resident problem child on these top 10. But guys, we'll be back later on with that. Dave's going to go enjoy his rest of his birthday. I'm going to learn how to talk. Come on, Dave, can you do it this time? It's your birthday. Are you going to be able to do it?
Well, it's come to that time when we must bid you adieu, goodbye, and good night. Bang.
And stay safe.